In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. Dear students, Assalamu alaikum. I am Dr. Khurram Shehzad from National University of Modern Languages, Islamabad. Today I intend to make a video on research methodology. The topic that I have chosen is known as research design and planning. That how we are going to plan the overall design, the overall structure of the research. So in this video, I will be talking about some of the very important ingredients or elements of research. And later on, we will be talking about them one by one in detail. These things I have taken from Louis Cohen, Mannion, and Morrison's book, Planning a Research Design. So in this chapter, I am going to talk about research design and methodology, approaching research planning, a framework for planning research, conducting and reporting a literature review, searching for literature on the internet, how to operationalize research questions, data analysis, presenting and reporting the results, a planning matrix for research, managing the planning of research, ensuring quality in the planning of research. Dear students, we have got certain questions that we need to answer. That why we intend to carry out this research? What is the rationale? What is the scope? How much time we have got so that we should be able to complete this research? Who are the people who will be the beneficiary of this research? Who are the people who are going to read this research? So, of course, first of all, at MPhil or PhD level, our teachers, they will be the evaluators. Our teachers or students, they will be the readers of this research. So we will have to keep in mind the academic style of writing. We will have to keep in mind that the people who are going to consume the research, first of all, they will be our teachers. And later on, of course, the society at large will benefit from this research. So why we are conducting the research? What is the rationale? What are our objectives? Why do we intend to carry out the research? What is the worldview right now that we are having? In my last lecture, I talked about pragmatic worldview. I talked about positive or post-positivist worldview. I talked about constructivist or literary or critical theory worldview. So these were the worldviews that we have already covered. So keeping in mind those worldviews, now it is our time. Once we know the ontological underpinnings of our research, the epistemological background of our research, the nature of reality, the nature of truth, the kind of worldview we fall in, so we are going to raise questions. And these questions will help us to determine our methodology, that how we are going to collect the data, how we are going to analyze the data, how we are going to report the data. At each and every step, you will have to make concrete decisions. Once the topic is approved, or you now intend to write down your research or carry out your research, so you will have to enlist the steps that you want to follow. So of course you should keep in your mind that why are you conducting this research, what is the rationale of selecting this topic, because they will be asking you that why have you chosen this particular topic. Already people have carried out the researches, so your rationale will explain that this is the reason that you have chosen this topic. So once you are clear about the topic, now you are writing the introduction of the research. So you will see that what are the variables, what are the constructs in the topic that you have taken. So operationalize those variables and constructs, define them, okay, and tell in the very beginning that which definition you have taken and why you intend to carry out the research. So right from the beginning, focus on the construct that you have taken, focus on the variables that you have taken. Let's say you want to talk about motivation, let's say you want to talk about pain, let's say you want to talk about assessment. So these are the main variables or constructs that you have taken. and multiple authors, they have already given their definitions on them. So of course you cannot take all the definitions, of course you cannot operationalize all the definitions. So choose the ones that you intend to operationalize, that you intend to manipulate throughout your research, and then develop good statement of the problem. Statement of the problem, it has got three components: background of the problem itself, the kind of effects that it is going to have on the people or on the society at large if we are not going to deal with this problem. So right from the beginning, focus on your constructs, on your variables, and from the statement of the problem, develop your objectives. 3 to 5 objectives are enough. If there are main objectives and you want to have subsidiary objectives, write them down. Then talk about your research questions. You need to develop your research questions from general to specific. Most of the people, when I look at their researches, so their research questions or their research objectives, they are not specific, they are very general. So you will have to develop this rigor, this thing in you, that you are writing very specific research questions. So these are some of the components that you should look at. Who wants the research? Who will receive the research? Who are the possible or likely audiences of the research? What power do the recipients of the research have? What are the general aims and purposes of the research? What are the main priorities for and constraints on the research? Is access realistic? So you intend to collect the data beforehand. You will have to make arrangements that how you are going to collect the data. What are the steps involved in the collection of the data? Is it possible to collect the data from all of the population, or you need to make a sample and the sample should be representative? Are you going for random sampling or non-random sampling? Will it be quota sampling, snowball sampling, purposive sampling? What kind of sample you intend to take? So you will have to enlist. And what is the rationale? You will have to talk about that this is the rationale for selecting this particular sample. So you will have to see, okay, is it accessible? Is it realistic to access the data? There are certain organizations in Pakistan and they will not let you get the data. Recently, I have received a letter and they are saying that we cannot provide you the data. So make arrangements for all these things before you write your synopsis, or if the synopsis is approved, before you move on to carry out your research. What are the time scales and time frames of the research? So of course you should know that how much time you are going to spend on this research, how much time you need for the collection of the data, how much time you need for the analysis of the data, how much time you need for writing the findings of the research, how much time you need for writing the complete report of your research. So make arrangements for all these things. How much money you are going to spend on each and every step that you are going to take in your research. So at what point will the ownership of the research pass from the participants to the researcher and from the researcher to the recipients of the research? Who owns the data? What ethical issues are to be faced in undertaking the research? Since we are dealing with human beings, so we will have to see that the ethics are involved, and you will have to follow the ethical rules and regulations, principles, which I will be talking about in my next video later on. A plan or strategy is that is drawn for organizing the research and making it practicable, so that research questions can be answered based on evidence and warrants. Without evidence, you cannot answer the research questions. So research design is overall, structure. It provides you that how you are going to collect the data, from where you are going to collect the data, how you are going to analyze the data, what is the scope of your research, what is the significance of your research, each and every step that you are taking, what is the rationale behind taking that research. The overall strategy that you choose to integrate the different components of the study in a coherent and logical way, thereby ensuring you will effectively address the research problem. It constitutes the blueprint for the collection, measurement, and analysis of the data. So, of course, you will have to see, is it the research that you are doing at MA level, at MPhil level, or at PhD level. Some researchers argue that a research design should go into considerable detail on data collection, instruments, and data types. Other researchers argue that a research design comprises only or mainly a logical argument in which all the elements of the argument cohere. So there are multiple, arguments or multiple point of views of the people, but overall structure of the whole research is called research design, where you are going to deal with methodology, and methodology is again overall structure of collection analysis of the data. Within methodology you have got research method like descriptive research method, and I personally believe most of the researches they are descriptive, where you are just describing the tables, where you are just giving the description of the data. And usually at PhD level here in Pakistan we do not accept descriptive researches. It should be case study, it should be evaluative study, it should be experimental study, it should be exploratory study, it should be analytical study, but not just descriptive study. Kinds of research purposes. So you need to operationalize your research purposes as well, your research questions as well, from the general to the specific. Does the research want to test a hypothesis or theory? So when you are testing the hypothesis, you are moving towards experimental study, and experimental studies are usually quantitative researches. Does the research want to develop a theory? So if you want to develop a theory, it could be ethnographic, qualitative research, or grounded theory, the research method that you intend to use. Does the research need to measure? When you are going for measurement, it could be an experiment, it could be a survey, it could be an evaluative study. Does the research want to understand a situation? It could be ethnographic, interpretive, or qualitative research methods or approaches that you are going to use. Does the research want to see what happens if? It could be experimental, participatory research, action research. Does the research want to find out what and why? Then it will be a mixed method research. Does the research want to find out what happened in the past? It will become an historical research method that you intend to use. So elements of research. Statement of the problem, I have already talked about. It has got three components. Grounding in literature, of course, you have already reviewed, you have already read so many researches which have already, occurred or carried out by the people. So now you have read them, you know their findings, you know what kind of research gaps they have left behind. So now you intend to fill those gaps. So literature review plays a very important role, and a complete video on literature review I will be making later on. Constraints on the research. Usually it is said that research is cyclical. It starts with a problem, it ends with a problem. Because once you have found the answers of the research questions, there are certain things which are left behind. There are already delimitations of the study, and these delimitations the researcher knows, because you have collected the data only from this university or only from Islamabad. So you cannot generalize this data or these findings on all the people who are living in Pakistan. So it has got delimitations. So it started with a problem, it ended with a problem. Aims and purposes, intended outcomes, nature of the phenomena to be investigated, operationalizing the research aims and purposes, research questions, foci of the research, priorities of the research, and methodology and kind of research, and ethical issues, of course, and time frames and resources and budget, and how you are going to write your research. So overall, this structure is called, the research design. So of course, I have already talked about that you develop from positivist or post-positivist or uh, interpretivist or critical theory or feminist approach. So these worldviews you have in your mind, keeping them in your mind, you develop the epistemology or ontology, okay, and then you develop your research questions or your research topic. So then you move on to talk about the statement of the problem, and from there you have your research objectives and research questions, and you develop your hypothesis. So hypothesis can be a directional hypothesis that intrinsic motivation will have a positive effect on the participants. So positive effect or will have a negative effect on the participants. It is a directional hypothesis. It is giving us a direction. Will have effect on the participants. There is no direction given here. It is a non-directional hypothesis. And will have no effect. So it is a null hypothesis. So you develop the hypothesis and then you test those hypotheses and you move towards quantitative approach and you move towards survey or experimental research method. So your research questions, they guide you that what kind of research you are going to conduct and from how many people you are going to collect the data, and through a questionnaire or interview guide or observation sheet or through different kinds of documents you are collect the data. You will have to determine their validity and reliability, and you will have to confirm their validity and reliability, and these issues you will have to face, and you will have to learn that how validity or reliability, these things are determined. Okay, and then once you are sure that the data or the research instruments that you have developed, that they are reliable and they are valid and they are asking what you intend to ask and they are reliable, then you should collect the data. Then and only then people will believe in you that the data that you have collected, it is of worth, it is of significance, and data that you have brought, it is valid. And then how you are going to analyze the data, is it qualitative analysis or quantitative analysis? Are you going to use SPSS or NVIDIA or some other kind of tool so that you should carry out the analysis? Will it be a content analysis, critical discourse analysis, or through certain theoretical frameworks that you have taken, you are going to apply them on the data that you have collected? So all these steps you will have to talk about. Then and only then we can say that this is a research design. It talks about each and everything, that how right from the beginning till the end you have explained each and every step of your research, and you have given the rationale that why you have chosen this step, why you have chosen this way of collection of the data, why you are going for random sampling, why you are going for purposive sampling, why is it snowball sampling that you are using. So if you have given the rationale, teachers or evaluators will be satisfied. Instead of writing that this is a qualitative research and this author has said this thing about qualitative research, and you keep on quoting, we are not interested in reading such type of things. What difference it will it make? So do not give this thing. Just tell us what are the steps that you have taken. Tell us what is the rationale behind the taking of this step. So if you enlist all these things, it will add breadth and width, significance to your research. Well, dear students, in the end, I would love to summarize. Research design is an overall structure where you enlist each and every step that you are going to take to carry out the research. You develop the statement of the problem. You talk about the research questions and objectives. You talk about the methodology. Is it qualitative research, quantitative research, mixed method research, or critical research, theory research that you are conducting? Then you talk about the research method. Is it survey research, experimental research, ex post facto experimental research, evaluative research, exploratory research? What kind of method you have chosen? You should talk about the rationale, why you have chosen these things, from how many people you have collected the data. Your questionnaire, is it structured or non-structured or semi-structured? Is it interview that you are going to use, and how you are going to administer these research tools, how you are going to collect the data, and whether these instruments they are valid or not. Each and every step you will have to enlist. Then how you have analyzed the data, you will have to talk about all these things. Then give your findings and then conclude your research by giving the answers of the research question that you posed in the beginning of your research. Thank you very much.